Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose. And yeah, so Sony, once again, is back in the news for all of the wrong reasons, because why not? You know, it just kind of feels like by this point they have gone completely anti-consumer. You know, I know there's a lot of Sony apologists out there, and they're going to cry in the comments below about how I criticize poor old Sony and their billion-dollar corporation. But I want you to listen, and I want you to listen close. I want to call out all of these companies when I think they've done something wrong. So maybe instead of blaming me for your favorite company taking advantage of you, maybe Sony should stop giving me a reason to call them out in the first place. I'm just going to kind of throw that out there. But yes, Sony once again has given me a reason to criticize them with a quiet price hike. And this one, I think, really kind of showcases the true desire on why these companies want a digital-only future. Now, we also have a really interesting Nintendo topic to talk about a little later on today, so do stay tuned for that as well. But let's just go and jump right into things, starting off with a new game release that's also heading over to Xbox Game Pass on November 26th. This is for Nine Souls, a really sleek-looking Metroidvania. We've actually talked about this game in the past, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Ori series combined with Hollow Knight. I mean, those are two of the best within the genre, so as long as the execution is there, then this could be a great surprise for a lot of people. In fact, it's actually been available on PC for some time now. It released on Steam earlier this year, and it actually has overwhelmingly positive reception. And if you look over on Metacritic, you'll notice that it has an 83 overall score with an 8.8 user score. So I'd say by all indication, Nine Souls appears to be a pretty good Metroidvania, and if you do like this genre, then it might be worth a try, again when it releases on November 26th. It'll then be available for Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, and yes, it will also be available on Xbox Game Pass day one as well. Now, we also got some new details for the PlayStation 5 Pro thanks to Digital Foundry. They've done a much better job at advertising the PS5 Pro than Sony has themselves. I feel like people have this impression that I just hate this console, which is not true at all. If you actually listen to what I say, I've said time and time again that I believe that it will get more positive reactions the closer it gets to its release. And I think for the people that do get it, they will enjoy it. For me, I've been more critical about Sony's decision-making and how they're handling its release. Not the console itself, but the price and just kind of the way they've showcased this thing. And, you know, that initial presentation, it was flat out terrible. I don't think there's any other way to describe that presentation because it didn't do a good job at showcasing the PS5 Pro improvements. And I don't think they themselves have shown anything that justifies its $700 to $800 price tag for the vast majority of consumers. That's all I've been trying to say. But this is where Digital Foundry kind of comes in. They just dropped an hour-plus video where they analyzed several games that they got hands-on time with. I very much recommend watching their video if you're on the fence for the PlayStation 5 Pro. But there are two games that they talked about that I want to briefly highlight here. Now, the first of which is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This is a fantastic game, but it leaves a lot to be desired on the base PlayStation 5. It's infamous for having a very soft image, and it's really just a blurry mess if you play on performance mode. According to Digital Foundry, though, the PS5 Pro essentially fixes that problem. Its image quality got a huge upgrade. Now, it doesn't sound like it's perfect per se, but it is still a big improvement nonetheless. Then the more surprising game out of the two is Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, despite this game also being a very good game, it is unfortunately one of the worst performing games this generation when it comes to its frame rate. I mean, we're talking about sub 40 on base consoles, but on the PlayStation 5 Pro, or at least the part that they played, it hovers around the 50 FPS range. So it's still not necessarily a perfect 60, but it is a big improvement, and it does appear to be in that range for VRR. Do keep in mind, though, that they've only played a small portion of the game, so, you know, it still might be best to wait for a more in-depth analysis, but this is still a more positive sign than really anything that Sony has shown us themselves. And actually, speaking of Sony, let's go talk about the elephant in the room here. This sneaky price hike for the Horizon Zero Dawn PlayStation 4 version. Just 1 week ago, Horizon Zero Dawn was listed at $20 on PlayStation's digital storefront. But now, lo and behold, with their new $50 remaster that nobody asked for, they decided to raise the value for the PlayStation 4 version to $40. That means that if you buy the PS4 version, you'll still have to pay $50 in total if you want the PS5 remastered upgrade. Now, we know for a fact that there are still a lot of gamers on a PlayStation 4. 50% of their user base, in fact, is still on the PS4 according to their very own data that they released earlier this year. And even more so, this is not the only thing that Sony has done to artificially raise the perceived value for their newest remaster that's kind of hard for them to advertise, considering their original that released a mere 7 years ago still looks incredibly good. They also pulled Horizon Zero Dawn from the PlayStation Plus catalog back in May of this year, and I think we all kind of know the reason as to why. They did the exact same thing to Spider-Man before it got its PlayStation 5 remaster. Sony is doing everything that they can possibly do to push gamers to this full $50 price tag, even though you can still get the physical version for around $20. And that there is one of the huge issues with this entire situation. It illustrates why these companies want to move away from physical games. Digital gives them complete control. That way they can set the perceived value for every game, which includes jacking up the price anytime that they see fit, which is exactly what we're seeing here. So I think this is a prime example as to why physical games are just so important. It not only gives consumers some amount of control over their own library of games, but in a way, we can also set that perceived value on the secondhand market. And then on top of that, you have retailers, which they play a huge role in perceived value as well because they compete with each other. So if a game isn't selling well, or if they just want customers to come into their store, they can discount a game. Whereas Sony, if they have complete control with only their digital storefront, well then suddenly in return, you'll have less consumer-friendly prices. Now, I understand that a lot of people have gone completely digital by this point, and there are certain positive benefits for digital games. So if that's something that you're comfortable with, then hey, more power to you. But physical games does introduce competition to some extent, which I think these companies very much need. I mean, look at Sony and some of the things that they've done this generation. I think some of their more bullish decisions have come from the fact that they don't have a lot of heavy competition right now. So no matter how much some people want to defend these companies, they're not our friends. And if they can take advantage of us, they will do that absolutely every single time. And I think in this situation, the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster is just not desirable at that $50 price. I feel like this should probably be around $30 at most. And if they would have gone in that direction, then yeah, the PS4 version would still be $20. Instead, what they're doing here is they're raising the price so they can charge a premium for a game that nobody even asked for. Now, if you already own the original game, though, I mean, the one positive is that it's only a $10 upgrade. And admittedly, it is a legitimate visual upgrade. The side-by-side pictures definitely favors the PS5 version. So if it's one of your favorite games and if you just want to replay it or something like that, then yeah, that $10 price might be worth it for you. But when it comes to completely new players, and that's what I'm kind of focusing on here, let's say you just bought into the PlayStation brand for the first time ever, then this price hike is nothing but bad news. What I'd recommend for you new Horizon players out there is that if you have a disc drive, just go buy Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition on the secondhand market. Then after that, if you want to upgrade, you can pay the $10 and you'll still get it cheaper than what PlayStation is offering it for themselves. Let me know what you all think about this, though. Do you think this price hike is shady, or do you think that I'm just completely off base? Now, also, I do want to talk about a new Nintendo Switch Lite upgrade that's been making waves these past few weeks. This actually comes from a fellow YouTuber by the name of Taki Udon. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but I will leave a link to his video in the doodad below. But he's done something that Nintendo hasn't, and he's given the Switch Lite an OLED display upgrade. So that means if you have one of those limited edition Switch Lites, and if you want to play with a better display, like let's say the Zelda version as one such example, then technically if you want to put some time into it, and if you're comfortable doing it yourself, then you can give it an OLED modification. He does have an installation guide on his channel. Again, I will leave that in the description below. And he's selling these OLED displays for as low as $50, though that version doesn't have a touchscreen, so do kind of keep that in mind. If you require a touchscreen, you instead need to pay at least $65, but this definitely makes the Switch Lite a lot more interesting. I mean, if you only play on the go and if you would prefer that smaller form factor, the Switch Lite just got a lot more interesting with this OLED mod compared to the original LCD screen that I would consider as just poor quality. Again, I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to check it out yourself, but this is definitely a really welcome mod for the Nintendo community, especially as we move into next generation. Now, one last thing before we go, Remedy Entertainment just accepted a 15 million euro loan from Tencent. They said as they move to self-publishing, this will give them more control for how their products are commercialized, and that's actually a good thing. One thing that we saw from Alan Wake 2 is that the Epic Games deal required exclusive rights for their storefront. And to this day, that has hurt Remedy. It's still not available on Steam, which is the biggest PC store, and Alan Wake 2 has yet to reach a profit. So that's a huge missed opportunity for a game that a lot of people consider great. You know, their potential reach has been handicapped because they are limiting themselves to the Epic Games Store. And the idea of self-publishing is that they can kind of avoid situations like this in the future. So, I mean, you know, we'll kind of see how all this plays out, but I do like Remedy Entertainment and their games. They make great single-player experiences that don't always necessarily explode in terms of popularity, but the quality is absolutely there. So I do hope this pays off for them in the long run. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but as always, subscribe if you like this type of content, and until next time, peace out.